Hi, this is Rose. And before we begin, have you charged like a bull?
Meet Rose Odette, tech trailblazer, EMR pioneer, and $100 million founder. Her book, Charge Like a Bull, unveils 7 strategies to scale without investors, crush your limits, dominate emerging markets, forge unstoppable alliances. Ready to break through? Get your copy on Amazon now.
Hey, grab your copy of Charge Like a Bull and Charge Like a Bull game plan book. You don't need book 1 to get the game plan book. Skip that 450 pages if you want to get right to work like I usually do. They'll both be out on Amazon waiting for you, and you'll find the link in the show notes. And a sneak peek, if you're more into Audible books, the Audible book will be ready at the end of June of 2025, and I've already listened to the first 30 minutes, and it's amazing. I did not narrate it. I hired a professional actor to narrate it, and thank God I did. Anyway, see you in the podcast. Welcome back to Bullish on Business. I'm Rose Odette, and today I've got a very, very special guest sitting right here next to me. Joining me is Roy Messing, the Executive Director of Michigan Center for Employee Ownership. Roy has spent decades helping business owners discover the power of employee ownership, whether that's through ESOPs, employee ownership trusts, or worker cooperatives. He's not only leading the charge here in Michigan, but he also connected nationally through the Employee Ownership Expansion Network, bringing best practices and big ideas right back to our state. What I really love about what Roy's work is that it's not just about succession planning. It's an or exit strategies. You know, that's important. But what's really cool is he's building stronger businesses, protecting jobs, which is so critical, and giving everyday workers a real stake in their future and their companies, and they can help the companies grow. It's such a good feeling to know that you're contributing to something you own. And with Michigan launching a brand new, we got a new project going, a $500,000 pilot program to support employees' ownership and in these transitions. The timing for this conversation couldn't be better because that just happened. So Roy, welcome to the show. It's such a treat to have you right here with me today. Thank you for joining us.
Well, thanks for inviting me. I was really looking forward to this and reaching out to the audience here and sharing what I can. It is an exciting time across the country. We talked a little bit about all these opportunities for transition, but it's an exciting time in Michigan for some of the programs.
Wonderful. Well, we want to get right into
Okay.
it. But before we do that, we always like to find out a little bit about the human being before we jump into the business, even though your business is quite heartfelt, in my opinion. So, Roy, you've got roots in dairy farms and experience in agriculture cooperative banking. How did that background shape, your passion for what you're doing now with employee ownership?
There's part of you talked about the cooperative side, and even though there is a structure that's specifically a cooperative, there's a lot of cooperation with an employee ownership trust or an ESOP. And one of the things I think of just starting out as a little kid on the dairy farm, my father and grandfather, even though they had separate farms, shared equipment and worked together. And then when my grandfather's farm transitioned to my uncle, that as well continued as far as that sharing of resources. And I'll have to say back then I was probably pretty cheap labor that was being shared. But I enjoyed it immensely. Wouldn't want to have been raised in that way. But so there's a lot of cooperation. My grandfather actually helped found the cooperative way back in the day. And so there's a lot of, I was very familiar with cooperatives in there just as I grew up. So I think there's a big tie there. I did agricultural lending, got into what back then was the Farm Credit Services. So people go way back, as Federal Land Bank, Production Credit, now it's part of the Farm Credit Network. So working with people, so I understood the cooperation between the different groups that you had to work with. And really, you're out there trying to serve those farms, because in that structure, it's kind of unique because those entities were cooperatives. And the farmers with members who own the cooperatives. So it wasn't like some banking experience as I had where you as a banker, you represented the bank. Here it was kind of ingrained. You got to meet the directors and that sort of thing. So it was a different experience, but it was really kind of opened up my eyes to some things as I moved forward and learned about employee ownership.
So you had that from pretty much day one. It's in your DNA.
Correct.
And when you think about farming, we all have it in our DNA because it wasn't that many, only 100 years ago, most of us, our families were farmers.
Very true. Very true.
But your father was instrumental in cooperatives. And so the whole concept of cooperatives, if you're not, can you give us just a brief, like 101 cooperative definition?
Sure. A cooperative is really established to help people achieve something that they can't achieve on their own. So you may not have the capital, the resources that you can accomplish your goals by yourself, but if you go together, then you can you collaborate with other people, cooperate with other people. And a lot of these the agricultural cooperatives that are out there, you think about the dairy industry, especially Michigan milk producers. It's a big one. So it's all these farmers get together, they're members of that organization. They can't sell their milk. They need it processed. They need that. So all of them come together. They need each other. They need that scale to be effective and get the fund.
Well, I think that really helps me understand really your background and how that about. We're going to start discussing business and some of the changes happening in business. This is the Bullish on Business podcast. I've got my little bull here with us today who is bullish on business. And so with that, I'd like to talk about the 80,000
Yes, there are
businesses whose owners will retire within the next decade.
Correct.
What is that number about?
It's called the silver tsunami. It's known as the silver tsunami. Baby boomers as they age and Gen X coming in right behind them. A lot of those people own businesses, and it's 80,000 of them in the state of Michigan, roughly. Studies little data, but still 80,000 or roughly, thousands and thousands of business owners are going to transition, and what's going to happen to that company. So we're really trying to get out in front and build awareness that unfortunately, a lot of these business owners haven't really planned. And I think if you get out in the rural communities, you go by and see where there's businesses that just shut down and don't go forward. It's probably because they hadn't planned. They didn't have an exit strategy. So that's one big thing. Certainly we're interested in people looking at selling that business to the employees, but it's critical from an economic development standpoint is to retain those businesses, really make that in.
Wow. Yeah, that's important. Very, very important work that you're doing. And, being a business owner myself, in defense of the business owners, you're just, every day is, you're so busy running the business, trying to make cash flow, trying to do payroll. And when you're thinking of succession planning or that type of thing, while you're in the heat of the moment, it's probably the last thing on their mind.
Correct. It's common out there. It's called, people being so busy working in the business, keeping it going forward. They're not working on the business, growing it, making it, shaping it to what it could be to really help fund their retirement or whatever their plans are down. Right?
Yeah, it's so good that you have, so let's talk about that you've done, you're really putting some highlight on this. What is that now? You work for an organization. It's a few initials. What is it?
Okay, well, there's a couple things, and the EOX, as well as the Employee Ownership Expansion Network, and EOX is a national nonprofit, and it establishes state centers for employee ownership, like the Michigan Center for employee ownership.
Okay.
And really that way, our strategy is to get boots on the ground in the state, to become the resources in the state for somebody to go to start discussing exit planning or the various, points of employee ownership. So, I still work with EOX to a large degree, but with some of the funding that's coming on, my focus has moved from a couple different states where I was working, plus Michigan, to mainly just working in Michigan now. It's a great opportunity here to move forward.
Well, I know that we have a kind of few questions that we're planning. I have one that, hope I don't take you off too
No.
bad. But as an employer and employees, if I wanted to transition my company over to my team, my staff, do I have to have like an heir apparent, like somebody who's like really like super on the business? Do I have to like appoint someone or what?
I think in any business that companies are, if say you're going to sell internally or externally, somebody wants to make sure that there's leaders in place. Do you have that critical management team? Somebody cover all those key jobs that need to be done. Because if you step out as an owner and you haven't planned, you haven't got people to training, then what's going to happen to the company? So I think most people look at it as, yes, typically there's going to be a leader, but as well, they want to have a base there. So really more than one. So it's, you just indicated how difficult it was as a leader of one company to do things. And then you're stepping out, how is that going to land on everybody? So if you have more people that cover those roles, you're going to be more successful with right training and preparation.
And that's what you do with
we do talk about that. I mean, it's one thing it's a critical part of any company.
So that's the EOX is the national, and then we have a Michigan
Correct.
chapter called MICEO.
Yes, the Michigan Center for Employee Ownership. And yeah, it's people say, well, are you a chapter? Do they own you? We're independent, two independent organizations, but we're very affiliated. So that's the way I kind of landed on that, is that we work back and forth. Yes, we work back and forth. And there's 24 of these centers. Some of them were in place before EOX came into being.
And 24 across the United States.
Across the United States. And
not every state.
Not every state has them. I was with the Ohio Employee Ownership Center, which was formed way before this, and had the opportunity with COVID, kind of did some numbers, did some had negative financial impact on what we're doing. So I stepped out of the Ohio Center and joined EOX to that forward, but still very connected with those folks.
Awesome. Well, it sounds like you have a dual role, and there's a lot of synergies between them, both state and national, and you contribute to both. So that's really cool. So we've got, I always think that it's great when you have other places to go for guidance and help, both up and down.
Correct.
Both ways. So employee stock ownership plans, employee ownership trusts, and worker cooperatives. How do you know which one makes sense? I'm sure it's like, you don't go to all of the, which one, how do you know what matches what structure?
It really kind of depends on the characteristics of the company. And while smaller company, I'll step back. An employee stock ownership plan is qualified retirement. It came about ERISA Act 74. And it's same category as an IRA or a 401k, but investing into the company stock. Lots of benefits. We don't have time to get into the details, but it is very complicated. With that, there's a lot of tax benefits potentially for business owners and the employees. As an employee, you typically don't buy in for your share, but you gain shares over time when you sell. You actually get to capture that money. It's retirement account for you. But because it has these benefits and all these other moving pieces and parts, it's much like a pension. Not only do you get the benefit of having to comply with the IRS rules, you comply with part of the labor. So lots of requirements, lots of a good deal of regulation that you have. And with that comes hiring professionals to make sure you stay in line. There's a lot of penalties with all those, the compliance. So typically, kind of the rule of thumb is you have to have a company that has scale and scope to justify the cost that you're maintaining. To start the company is start the ESOP and then maintain. Kind of a rule of thumb is about $1.5 million of EBITDA. That's the earnings before interest, tax, and depreciation, so cash flow, pure cash flow. And I've heard anywhere from 25 to 40 employees because there's highly compensated to qualify for that. So if you have a company that has, it's a nice company, it earns 2 to 5 million a year, and you've got 10, 15 employees, it's probably not going to qualify for ESOP. So that's the disqualifier, if you will.
Right, good to know though. It's nice to know, how big is it and how does it work? Because I was always curious about that myself. A friend of mine, he took his company through an ESOP and he had 400 employees and definitely met all those criteria. Now, but now my company was at that time when I was approached by a consultant who does ESOP, I was too small. We were doing probably 5 million and had about maybe 18 people. So it didn't make sense.
So something like that, it may make sense for the worker cooperative that you talked about. It's a structure like agricultural co-ops that I mentioned before, but in the agricultural co-ops, it's the farmers who own the cooperative. The workers, the employees are workers or employees. They don't have an ownership stake. In a worker cooperative, they actually get to buy. The interesting twist on this is if they don't want to, they don't have to buy.
With the worker
worker co-op. So
I've never heard of a worker cooperative before this very moment.
well, that's why we're getting in here. It's just building awareness. So higher groupings of these on each coast, and then everything kind of has its own flavor as you get across. But it is a cooperative structure. People have to buy in. Probably one of the big things is there's a little bit of confusion, and I understand why. If you're buying a company and the company's worth $2 million, you're paying $2 million, and then fund whatever. For a cooperative situation, it's financed through the cooperative. You don't set the share. If you have 10 employees, you got $1 million company. The 10 employees don't have 100 grand sitting around each to put in. So you set that share price at a meaningful value. So it's meaningful, but yet attainable. So they're willing to buy in. They can buy in. And then the company is just financed separately. So you kind of work out that. I've seen ranges from, there was a community development one done that was in Cleveland and it's in Ohio. And that had a $5 million buy. And now I know there's an engineering firm in Madison, Wisconsin. And I think they're buying, it's like 45, 50,000. So engineers buy. So it's all over the board. And so there's examples out there, but you'd look to those examples to figure out what the right price is. The idea when we're doing these structures that, so if you do a conversion, so you're selling it the first time, you want to set that price, but you want to make sure that the next generation come in and buy it as well. So you have to, it is a planning opportunity to get in there and figure out what that right value is. So company like yours would have been a good structure for that. There's companies that are much larger that form cooperatives. They just said no thank you to Department of Labor or other rules that they have to follow. So it's the other side. Now the employee ownership trust is a little different. It is a trust that holds the shares, but they're not allocated to the employees. There's some work on this. This is actually out of a United Kingdom model that came through about 10 years ago. So when they first started in the States, and so it's under perpetual trust. I think there's a lot of movement in this. The real motive for this would be for a business owners. I want this company to go forward into perpetuity, so perpetual trust. So what they're really trying to do is just set that company up for success in the future. You've got a trustee. That owner is going to be a little more patient with getting their dollars out because they want to create this. And then, and that can go anywhere from 10 employees up to, we've seen cases where they really want to do that in the community, and there's 500 employees. Nothing in the state like that, but it's like that.
Wow, Roy, you have taught me so much, and I'm sure you guys are learning a lot too. This is a great podcast. I love it. I love learning new things. So now let's talk about the big news. The big news now, MICEO launched a pilot. Talk about the pilot.
Pilot program from the Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity here in the state. Really kind of their motivation is, let's see if we can start securing some of these jobs, some of the, retain these businesses in the state because it's about jobs and they like employee ownership.
Yeah.
So the program, there's of this 500,000, there's 400,000 that is going to flow through us. We're getting applications in right now and processing those. The idea though is, if it looks like the company is a pretty good candidate for employee ownership in all three structures, we'll sort through the details. They do a screening piece. If they're not a good fit, we're handing them off to folks like the Small Business Development Center so they get resources. But then we go through a process. We let them know they're approved. They engage the professional. They might be some legal work, might be in the ESOP world. It's a feasibility study, some valuation work, something like that. And so they engage the professional who we vet. And then once that work is done, or once they have the invoice, usually some upfront, some at the end, we forward the dollars. Dollars flow through the state to us. So the idea here is business owners, it can be pretty expensive to kind of, you're not dipping your toe in, you're really sticking your leg in if you're going to spend 30 grand feasibility study. So business owners can get this chance to offset those costs to a degree and figure out, is this a good fit for me? So we think that's going to really advance a lot of people. There's been some of this work was done, type of work was done in the program in Ohio way back before my time. They had a program that funded this, and that really motivated business owners to explore. It's kind of the back of their mind. Think about selling to employees, but I don't know where to start.
Yeah.
Cost
Where do you start?
this type of program will help them. So then there's a piece for us to actually manage this and market it. And the last one's kind of an interesting, some funding for us. We're going to get professionals in the room. We're talking about these employee ownership trusts, which are kind of, I don't want to say they're new wild west type of thing, but there's a lot of things all over the board. So we're trying to figure out what are the best practices. So we'll be working on that to determine what those best practices are moving forward. So it's exciting.
So exciting. Wow, this is huge. I'm just, this needs to be on the front page of the Michigan Business Magazine. This is really big news. So how many people or companies are you anticipating joining and participating with the pilot?
So far we have, I think it's 35 applications. Last we looked, and this is just about, I think, 2nd of July. So it's pretty new.
Wow, but it's getting the words out.
35 applications, rough numbers. There was quite a few that we looked at just weren't a fit. So that's maybe a dozen of them. And then the rest, we're still trying to determine. So we've got that screening app, and then there's going to be a full application that was sent. So we're getting some of those are drifting back.
How are they finding out about this?
It's kind of Department of Labor and Economic Opportunity had a press release. They have a distribution list of over 100,000. They're partnering with the Small Business Association of Michigan, so some contacts there. The Michigan Manufacturing Association. So there's different groups. Different groups are getting it out there, and then as we're posting it, we actually list on our application how you find out about the wall friend. And, somewhere out there came in.
At Rotary.
Yeah, it's broadcast out there, which is great because even though we'd love to say, hey, let's get 30 business owners in the room, most business owners don't want to go in the room telling somebody that thinking about selling my business. So this is a great way to kind of spread that word out there.
It's not something, it's because it makes everybody nervous.
Yeah.
Makes so many people.
So ultimately, what the goal of this is to have 7 to 10 businesses move through the process.
Through the pilot?
Through the pilot process, those who actually engage. And we got a pretty short window, so we're,
money for
we're-
7 companies.
yeah. But if you start, I mentioned the 30,000 for feasibility study for an ESOP, so
Yeah,
that's a big chunk, that goes quick. That goes quick. But we know we're not gonna get those all this year, but if we can show progress that they're really engaged and doing all that work, that's gonna be
It
success.
makes it sound like there might be a real.
Yeah, so on the other side of that is want to show a lot of success, so that's why we're working so hard to put together, because we'd like to do this, because ultimately, if you think about those 7 to 10 businesses, let's say they average, with some of these ESOP companies, conservatively 50 employees, so, that's 500 employees, think of the impact.
Huge.
And then it just grows from there, so.
It's important, such important work. So in my research and getting ready for the podcast, I found out that Grand Rapids is ranked 12
Yes.
nationally. Wow, that's pretty impressive.
The Grand Rapids region, it has embraced ESOPs.
For a long time.
For quite some time. And actually, I should have brought the numbers with me, but Ottawa County specifically has like 12 ESOPs, and they're big companies. It's each region of the state has kind of its different nuance. I think you look at Grand Rapids, one of our advisors talks about West Michigan ICE. So anyway, I think people, especially the business owners, might have a little more caring about their employees.
So I actually lived and worked in Grand Rapids for several years. I worked for IBM in Grand Rapids and had a couple of my children in Grand Rapids, and the work ethic and just the business trust and just ethics. It's just nice and hardworking and very ethical people. I think it's got a lot to do with the Christian background.
I do believe so, and
it's
it's
awesome.
it is. And one of the things I like to say is, not everybody, but a lot of these business owners, kids are gone, they're not going to take over the company, and it's the employees are family. Okay, they're not core family. They might be second, third, or fourth cousins, but they're still family.
They
type
are
of thing. So
and you spend more time with them than you do with your own family.
at times, yes. So anyway, I think there is more personal caring about that, and image to a lot of these people, or legacy means so much to a lot of them. And it's employee ownership is a way to continue to create or continue that legacy.
That's so cool. It really pulls at the heartstrings, and it's really important to leave that legacy, I believe, especially, financially, it makes sense for the, economic, to talk about economic development. This is economic holding what we have.
It's a retention strategy. Really is. So.
Very cool. Very, very cool. So research shows employee ownership leads to higher wages and better benefits and wealth building for workers of color.
Yeah, there's a couple different dynamics there. Certainly with an ESOP, it's a qualified retirement, and so it's like you create this large. They actually have a benefit of that share that grows in value over time. So ESOPs particularly have much higher employees of ESOPs have much higher retirement benefits than other people. But as well, they also have more 401ks than the average company out there. And if you get an employee-owned company that the employees are engaged, it's not just for they're an owner and they really get it.
Right.
They are driving better business decisions that hit the bottom line, that help themselves.
It's so true.
So they can drive higher wages and more benefits that way, and they have more say in the matter. And it's not just like there's not 100 employees, 100 people going their own way. It is still, you have a board of directors, you have management, but people are pulling, they're pulling the oars together.
Sure, because they make it their own.
Yes.
It is their own.
And then on the community side, I mean, not large companies, but a lot of startup companies, which more on cooperative space, that really target that to try to help bring back. In Cleveland is a big example of that. long project, had some struggles, but now where it's at, the evergreen projects that they have, evergreen cooperative, they've managed to pull that together. And most of the folks there are people of color or people who have been served time. So they're really trying to get in and re-engage those folks and help them pull themselves forward. So, they get the benefits of hard work and having a great opportunity to, impact themselves. So
It's a win-win everywhere I see it. So business succession gap is really, I can see it's real. You got all these people retiring, and if you could pick like one game changer to close the gap, is it which one would you say is most effective? The ESOP, EOT, or the policies, or I'm just trying to learn.
Yeah,
I think we all are.
it's none of those.
None
I
of
mean,
those.
maybe ultimately one of those is the outcome policy, would be a big thing. For a business owner, I
And
think,
what's the core strategy?
I'll go with the business owner first is, oftentimes you'll talk to a business owner and say, well, I'm retired in 5 years, so I'll start. That's the wrong approach. Because if you wait 5 years, life changes, things happen, and you go to sell your business, it might not be the same value it is today. So start planning now, get a better understanding of what your company is worth, what you need to do. Maybe there's pieces you need to get rid of. Maybe there's pieces you need to bring in, players you need to get the right folks.
Yep.
So it's really, a lot of people look at all that activity as an expense. And it's really not an expense, it's an investment. And I just think of the example and say, well, give me an example. Well, my wife and I sold our house down Cleveland area to move up here. In the last couple of years, we were in the house for about the last couple of years is when we really started investing in the house. It's kind of, now we don't want to leave because we put so much into it. It's the way we want it. But it's that type of thing. You're going to get more value out of it if you fix it or you get it to where it should be early on. So it's kind of that strategy. You got to invest in that and then moving forward.
That's
I think
a good analogy. Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, and then from a policy standpoint, I think like this program that we have, let's think about how do we retain these, some of the structures are a little harder to develop and get through. So any support that we can have that will result in viable businesses staying in the state of Michigan or whatever state you may be in or whatever country you may be in, it's just going to have that positive impact on the community. So it's an investment in the community to retain those businesses. So I hope that answered.
You did that, because I like to let the people, I always call my podcast my team. It's kind of funny, but I like to make sure that we all kind of know the strategy, like the big picture, and start early. Sounds like the message is to start it early as soon as you consider it. And it's not just for those. It sounds like you work with companies that I know a lot of folks, when they start a business, they were employees before, and now they're the owner, and they want to do it a way that's more friendly to their employees, because it wasn't that long ago they were one.
Correct.
So they want to.
They know what it's like to be in the other seat.
Yeah.
So they want to be able to attract people and retain people by setting up policies internally, the structure, things that are going to be more friendly. In fact, just had a call this morning with somebody who we were following up on this grant program, and won't get into the details, but that was exactly it. They left where they were because they saw they weren't too happy. So they learned a lot of things. They went somewhere else, started a new business, and it's more of, I'm never going to run the business like that.
Right.
I'm going to run this, the way that it makes sense for, me, the employees, but the customers. So I think that's, so that's really going to, that business will move forward, and something's got a great mind. So
That's really, and it sounds like a good heart too.
yes.
So, you guys are a nonprofit.
Yes,
Just
we are.
501(c)(3). And how do you ensure the business, how do you decide who gets a slice of you and the work you guys do? Is it
That's a good
based on
question.
size?
No,
For industry?
we're really agnostic about size and industry. Although, really kind of what drives us more is our funding that we have. We do get a lot of grants, because we're a 501(c)(3), we take grants, but very mindful of the fact that we want broad based with what we're doing. When we've talked to some people, we say, oh, wouldn't it be great if these 80,000 companies in Michigan, wouldn't it be great if 50,000 of them would form an ESOP? They can't form an ESOP. In fact, it's going to be a smaller percentage, somewhere in that 15 to 20% range, 10 to 20% range. These companies might be able to form an ESOP, and that's a might, depends on a lot of factors. But all those that are smaller, they can't do an ESOP, they have to look at these other structures. So we're very mindful of what we're doing to make sure that we're getting that information out to people. And the time that we spend with these groups, it's probably we spend more time individually with the smaller groups. The larger companies who qualify for an ESOP, we need them information and decide, okay, that makes sense for me. And then moving forward with that, we work with a lot of consultants, a lot of professionals who know what they're doing. We're just dangerous enough that we know enough that it's like somebody, but somebody comes to us and say, why don't you leave me? You don't want me to leave you your ESOP. You'll have the Department of Labor done. But it's something for the smaller ones. It just hasn't, because there's not as much familiarity, not as much funding for it. A lot of these smaller companies, there's not the skill set out there to do it. So I'm kind of back in my old banker mode, coming in, truly trying to help people to solve things. So it's kind of fun getting engaged with people.
I can tell you're really loving it.
Yeah.
It sounds like you're having a lot of fun.
I just have to get out of my day job so I can go get this company.
So looking ahead, what do you imagine for employee ownership in Michigan's future?
I think it's really just an open opportunity. And I think especially my feeling, I grew up in the Thumb area of Michigan, so very rural. I think a lot of these rural communities, employee ownership will go a long ways to keeping those businesses local. So I think that resonates with me. I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity. You don't want to be the guy who sold the company and have to go into town because everybody's looking at you because yes, your pocketbook is pretty thick, but everybody else doesn't have jobs. So you don't want to do that. I think that carries through there. So I think that's an area for opportunity. Plus, private equity has its place. There's a lot of people out there in private equity and it fits for some groups. But once you get private equity involved, it's more about we've got to achieve these results in less than five because they've got big money that they're putting in. So I think more patient capital isn't going to demand those results. So I think there's going to be a lot of opportunity for people to transition employees.
So if we were to go out to the podcast audience and give them a call to action, what would you recommend for our audience to do if they do own a business and they're at whatever stage? What's your recommendation?
One, start planning now. Even if you don't plan on selling it to your employees, start that exit planning, start getting the company in shape. You may get an outside offer. If you don't know what your company is really worth, you may shorten yourself if you haven't really planned. So if you kind of develop and create a valuable business, it's going to be more meaningful to you. And if you are interested in employee ownership, call somebody like me or look up the Employee Ownership Expansion Network. There's a couple of national organizations, ESOP Association, National Center for Employee Ownership, and there's also worker cooperatives. So EOTs are a little slower. They're newer, so they're just kind of formed. Just seek out resources. And then even if you're not, think about your buddies. What's the circumstance? If, Joe down the road is 70, thinking about selling his business. I heard about one where the second generation, 70, and still in charge at 94 or something.
Wow.
So, and there are, but if somebody's doing that and they really don't know where they're going to go, just have them reach out, give us or somebody else as a source, they can start exploring them because I think a lot of business owners, like you said, so busy working in the business, they haven't figured out how to get out of it and they don't know where to start.
Right.
So just get them a resource as a place to start.
So if you are selling your business, retiring, or you just want to have a better understanding of your company's value, there's a lot of reasons to engage with us. And we will be putting all of the details for Roy and the MICEO, as well as all of the different organizations and information about this really cool pilot that's out there. If you're interested, I'm sure you'll be able to find information about that as well. And so I'm so happy that we had Roy here today, because I know I learned a lot. I'm sure you did too. And with that, any final words?
I think it's, as you said, what's the call to action? Even though it may not be pending doom, it doesn't hurt to start thinking about where you're going. If you're 40, and the interesting thing, we do have several people. I think the youngest application we have is 35-ish. So a lot of young people come. They don't have the baby. I've got to hold on to that forever. But anyway, but if you are just starting to think, start asking questions.
Good point.
Take time. Step out of the company. Take some time to plan what you're going to want to do. So you can go into retirement successfully. And here's the other note on that retirement. Make sure you know what you want to do when you retire, because a lot of people say, okay, I'm out, I'm retired, and I have no idea what they're doing. So figure out that plan piece. That's just as important. So,
especially if you get out early.
Yeah.
Because you'll have a lot of time on your hands, and you want to do it with what you desire to do. Well, thank you again, Roy, and with that, we'll see you next time.
thank you so much.
Charge on.